This is Smoko Padre Podcast 1783 with me, Smoko Padre, and Delta Echo. Good evening, Delta. Good evening. The galleries are full of critics. They play no ball. They fight no fights. They make no mistakes because they attempt nothing. Down in the arena are the doers. They make mistakes because they try many things. The man who makes no mistakes lacks boldness and the spirit of adventure. He is the one who never tries anything. He is the brake on the wheels of progress. And yet, it cannot be truly said he makes no mistakes, because his biggest mistake is the very fact that he tries nothing, does nothing, except criticize those who do things. General of the Marine Corps, General David M. Shoup. Well, howdy there, Pipe Pals. Holy Smoking Pipe Padre, starting a new video with you. Let me get this old briar burning here. And to start off the video with a little housekeeping, we have that Ben Wade chimney pipe, which I kind of been talking about and actually brought out and dusted off last video, a couple weeks ago. And I have to say, let me get my old boy here. The old boy lighter, as well as the other Dunhill lighter. I use this one here sometimes too. Nice and sweet. Okay, I am smoking some Boswell's Paradise. Got this about a year ago. Yeah. Yeah, so, sometimes, you have to kind of take a step back and and reevaluate things. And although I have to say I have been very critical of this pipe in years past, I have to say that I've kind of had a new revelation that maybe I was a little harsh in criticizing this pipe. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have its flaws. Now, right now, I can feel that getting quite warm. One of my big critiques was that this was a very hot pipe to smoke. And yet, the last video that I brought it out, kind of say, yeah, see guys, this pipe isn't all that great because it gets too hot. And I remember that I noticed that it really wasn't that bad. And I think the reason why is because I was really trying to sip the tobacco, which I'm going to try to do again tonight. And speaking of sipping, I have at my elbow one of my favorite little Christmas gifts here for all my vegan fans out there. A nice cup of vanilla nut coffee at my elbow tonight. Okay. So, those of you who are followers of Jocko Willink and Echo Charles probably saw that I was doing a little parody there. More of an homage, actually, to Jocko. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've been kind of watching online, and Jocko's had a couple of really powerful podcasts. Again, it's not a critique. It's just that, they're like 4-hour podcasts. And usually he has some interesting guests. I don't know if you'd even call them guests, but he has people who he interviews that are just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So now I started off with something that might have kind of taken some people by surprise. Why is he getting so serious? Why is he reading this quotation by an old, if you will, an old dead guy, old dead white guy, old dead Marine Corps white guy, General Shoup? Why is he doing that? What's the point of all this? Well, it will be apparent ere long, dear viewer. However, I just wanted to say that in the beginning, to kind of contextualize everything, I'm going to be talking about the importance of criticism. Maybe one or two of you probably that watch this video and know where I'm going to probably take this in a little bit. But basically, I'm going to talk about criticism and in relation to leadership and self-knowledge, okay? Self-awareness, I guess, because those are important things. But first, I wanted to talk about some kind of fun things. In the last, in the last couple of months, but in the last week, that's good. In the last week, especially, I was watching. Looked like something broke over there, but I don't think it's broken. I just think it's the glass pane's a little bit out of kilter. That's all. It just looks like it's a little. I have a shelf over here, and it has plates and cups and saucers and things like that. And I noticed that one of the little glass panes in the window door is a little off. So I'll have to check that out later. So I was listening to a video, and I couldn't tell you to save my life who was saying all this, but it was interesting because they were talking about. I don't know if that's my first Anyway, we'll talk more about ums and knows in a minute. But the podcasters or YouTubers were talking about nightmares, reoccurring reoccurring nightmares. Dreams that you have that are on a reoccurring basis, and they're kind of nightmarish dreams. But they're not like scary monster, horrific dreams. They're dreams that are kind of rooted in your own personal reality. And I think I know who it was. Dark Horse Podcast. Yeah. That Brett Weinstein, and I guess it's his wife, Heather. I can't pronounce her last name, but anyway, they were both talking about, this is about last week, or maybe even earlier this week, about the reality that they would have these reoccurring dreams that would fill them with fear and dread, i.e. nightmares. That's what I called them. About being in college and for some reason not being able to graduate. And it was interesting because there was almost identical to some of the dreams that I had. And I just was talking to somebody at Thanksgiving time, and they said that they had the exact same academic dream. I guess we'll just call them academic dreams. And basically my dream, and it's not too far off from what this Brett Weinstein and Heather were talking about, and my friend at Thanksgiving dinner. But basically, mine kind of unfolds this way. It's like I have been, it's finals week or finals day. I'm going to go take a test. And I have been aware that I have kind of blown off this class or classes for about the entire semester. And I'm realizing that I'm not going to be able to pass the final, or I'm not going to be able to turn in the paper, or what have you. It's like, part of me is saying, well, I've been meaning to go attend that class. I've been meaning to do the coursework, but I never got around to doing it. And here it is, finals day, And I realized that not only am I not going to get a passing grade in this class, but don't you know that because I was at the time I was on the GI Bill, being a former Marine and having the GI Bill, now I'm going to forfeit or lose out on the fact that I will now have to pay back all this money because I never graduated. You know, I never got through with college because I, for some reason, just decided that going to class and doing the coursework weren't all that important. And now is the day of reckoning. And I am painfully aware, I'm horrified that I am going to fail. I am not going to graduate. I'm not going to get my degree. I'm not going to be able to live my life. Now, maybe for a few of you out there, you're probably going, hey, I've had that dream too. And if you have, I guess the point of this is that it's not that unique as I used to think it was. I used to think, boy, I have such unique dreams. I'm such a unique person. But anyway, I figured out by just sharing that interesting little anecdote that I shared with you that other people have kind of similar dreams, or in my case, kind of nightmares, you know. So I thought that was very interesting. The dream, the nightmare, the reoccurring, and a lot of times I would say it was sort of like summer rerun dreams. Now, not that I would get them in the summertime, but they were reoccurring. So they were like reruns, you know, dream reruns. And I'm sure that everybody, to some extent, maybe has some of those reoccurring dreams that you kind of, it's the same theme. So maybe you know what I'm saying. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But maybe there are other things that are similar. Instead of maybe going to college, maybe it's not buying your significant other the wedding ring, and you go to the wedding and you forget the ring, or you forget to show up on the right day for the wedding or something like that. So maybe people have those kinds of rerun nightmares. I don't know. But I just thought that was very fascinating when I heard that the other day on the Dark Horse podcast. And when Brett was talking about that, I said, oh my gosh, I've had the same dream. And it's been a reoccurring dream. Now, what he said was after he got through with getting his degree and moving on with his life, those dreams never came back. But for me, for some reason, they've always been kind of, I mean, I haven't had that dream in a long, long time. I'd say probably, no, I take that back. Maybe about 2 years ago, I probably had that dream show up again. I mean, it's very current. I mean, as far as, you know, my life goes. But it's not like something I had dreamed, you know, just last week or last night. But, you know, I'm certainly aware that I've had this reoccurring dream over a number of years. And it was just so fascinating to me to know that other people have had similar, almost identical dream scenarios. So make of that what you will. The next thing I kind of wanted to talk about, let me get the old briar stoked up here. That's really good. Really like that. That is delicious. Just the one thing about the chimney pipe is it does spew a lot of cinders. A lot of cinders. But it's dry and sweet, flavorful. So anyway, maybe my next video I'll try some of my Christmas tobaccos. A dear friend gave me some Christmas, I think, tobaccos, and I would like to try those as well. I just don't like opening a tin and then letting it go bad. So I try to use what I have and then go on to the next one. The next thing I was going to talk about, which I think is interesting, and I've touched upon it in my video homilies, is this whole emergence of the Metaverse. And I believe that Mark Zuckerberg, who I'm not trying to drop names here, but he's actually a neighbor. He lives right down the road here. Kid you not. Of course, I've never met him, and I probably never will. However, he is now changing Facebook to Meta because he wants to create this virtual world called the Metaverse. Maybe some of you have heard of this. Now, if you're my age or slightly older, and there aren't many of you out there now, you have probably heard of the Metaverse. I'm just now becoming acquainted with it. It's something that's still kind of new to me. Now, I will say this, about 5-6 years ago, when I was in Chico, California, and pastor there at that parish there in Chico, a couple of times when I would go to Best Buy, I would see a advertisement for this thing called Oculus Rift, or Rift. I think it's Oculus Rift. And the thing is that it was interesting because it was sort of like this new technology for video games, which made them kind of more 3D-ish. So you put the goggles on, and instead of just looking at a two-dimensional screen that is reinterpreting two-dimensional images in a three-dimensional world, but still 2 dimensions, now you have that actual three-dimensional space, or which seems, I mean, it appears to be 3D. I mean, but it's virtual. It's digitized. And at first, I thought it was interesting. I was interested. Part of it was I kind of thought, well, it was extremely expensive. I guess it's still quite expensive to get the Oculus Rift or those 3D goggles. And as I was looking at it, and I think I actually might have tried it out, but I wasn't that impressed because even though it was quote unquote virtual 3D, it didn't seem to be that immersive. I guess that's what I would say. That kind of said, well, why am I going to spend all this money when it's still kind of a gimmick, still kind of a gimmicky thing? And one of the things, and again, don't get me wrong, most of you do know, who watch these videos, know that I like technology. I like playing around with software and hardware. And sometimes I like the latest and the greatest. Sometimes it helps me to make better videos. Sometimes it's a learning experience. I think it's very important, the older we get, to keep learning. You know, maybe it's a musical instrument, maybe it's a foreign language, maybe it's, video editing, maybe it's all the above. I don't know. But it's really important to stay kind of on top of it. And I have to say that I'm impressed with some of our parishioners who are older than I am, and they're pretty techno-savvy. You'd think somebody in their 70s or 80s, even their 60s, is probably not that tech-savvy. And you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong to assume that. So it's kind of encouraging to me to see people that are significantly in their advanced years still, being able to interact with this newer technology, whether it's the cell phones, the internet. I'm assuming that there may even be some people out there that are in their 80s that are doing virtual reality now and loving it. That's all great. But the thing is that with Mark Zuckerberg and a few of these other technologists who think that they're actually going to get humanity, not just, people that are gamers or people that are interested in tech. Again, if you hear anything I say, I'm pretty much a free spirit, live and let live kind of a guy. I'm going to tell you what I believe. I'm going to share with you what I believe my faith teaches me. And again, I'm not perfect. Some people like to criticize me about, well, you're not really a good Christian. And again, I'll be the first one to say, I am not. I'm still growing, and I still struggle just like every other Christian, okay? Now, that's not to give me myself as a cop-out or an excuse, but I acknowledge the fact that, yes, I am a sinner. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, okay? First and foremost. But there are people out there that are into certain things, hobbies, like Jocko Willink, he's probably 55, 56, 57. He's not a young guy, and he's into jiu-jitsu and MMA, Now, there are some guys that are out there that even in their older years, you want to be an MMA martial arts kind of guy, knock yourself out, and maybe you will. But all I'm trying to say is that's all fine and good. But when certain people who maybe have a technological power base to say, now everybody's going to do this or else kind of thing, that's where I have a problem. Again, I think we see that. Now, it's interesting. It seems like for some reason, don't ask me why, there's an interesting reversal. What I'm talking about right here now is the COVID mandates. Currently in the U.S., as of 1/2022, we still have mandates in place for masks, and I guess if you're a health worker, you're supposed to get the jab, and it's compulsory. But I'm hearing in the UK they're dropping the mask mandates. They're dropping a lot of the COVID mandates. It's like, wait a minute, I thought they just a couple of weeks ago made it mandatory that everybody has to do all these COVID mandates, and now, surprise, surprise, they're dropping it. I heard Boris, I think it was through a guy named Carl Vigneron or Vernon, UK guy, who was kind of saying, hey, look what's happening here. And so I am not for forced mandates of any kind. So if people want to delve into the metaverse or virtual reality and have fun with it, and and maybe you can create this virtual world, apparently what they're trying to use to sell this point is that, well, your basic human carbon life is just, it's terrible, isn't it? Don't you agree? I mean, you're not a very attractive person. You're not wealthy. You don't live in a beautiful part of the world. You don't drive a really nice car. You don't have really attractive friends, right? But in the metaverse, oh, you can be anything you want to be. You can have any kind of lifestyle you want to fantasize about. And supposedly, people en masse are going to supposedly tune out of real life and tune into the matrix. I mean, the metaverse, kind of the same thing, right? Sign me up for a digital life, and I can just, not really be a part of this, living my life in my mother's basement kind of a thing. I don't know. And all I can tell you is, and this is just my own personal opinion. Now, I heard somebody, a guy say, a couple of guys that I listen to on a regular basis, they were saying it's interesting because people my age and a little bit older, they're just not interested. It's like, so what? But he said the younger kids that have been coming up who've been playing these video games like Fortnite all along, they're on board with this. They think it's cool. And they wouldn't mind literally just having a virtual life as opposed to having a real corporeal, life. Now, all I can tell you is, as a person who has, seen the advent of technology going all the way back to America Online, you've got mail, that kind of stuff, and the 56K modems, ding, 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 okay. Seeing all that, and then, the chat rooms and all that stuff that, was kind of, all this new edge, cutting edge stuff. Technology kind of finds its own level, and people will kind of interact with it to a certain degree. But trying to force some technological, what they think is an advancement on all of humanity, it's just not going to work. Again, you look at all the fads that have come and gone technologically. 8-track players. Now, I know there's probably a few of you out there, pipe pals, who have 8-track players, and you probably still enjoy listening to Moody Blues and in Chicago, and your Beatles 8-track tapes, and God love you. If you have an 8-track tape player, God love you, God bless you. Vinyl records. Of course, there were vinyl before the 8-track tape players. Then we went to cassettes. I was a big cassette guy. Still got boxes of cassettes. Of course, then that was kind of replaced with the CD-ROMs, and then the DVD-ROMs. DAC tape kind of had a little, not many people probably remember those DAC tapes, digital audio tapes. Those weren't that, because they got quickly snuffed out by MP3 players. And then the MP3 players, of course, have and DVD players have also gone the way of the dodo because of streaming. You don't go out and buy DVD sets anymore. I used to. I still have a lot of my DVD sets, like Sherlock Holmes and Midsummer Murders, and all my beloved serials that I used to love and still do. But most of those were either originally VHS and then went to DVD, and now you just stream them. I was watching Sherlock the other night and just enjoying watching Sherlock. It's already up there on the cloud, and I just download it from the cloud, and Bob's your uncle. So, but the thing is that a lot of the technological things that everybody thinks are going to be the latest and the greatest, and they're going to revolutionize the world, they come and they go. Flip phones, now they're talking about foldable phones. Well, it wasn't the flip phone, if you think about it. Wasn't that the first foldable phone? Just it folded in a different direction, but it's still something that folded, and so 3D TVs. Boy, I'd hate to have been somebody who invested in that technology, because it was talk about a flash in the pan. Now, maybe some of you have 3D TVs and you love them, and that's great. But when people come along and they just say that this is the latest and the greatest and it's going to make your life, so much better and more entertaining and more fun and more accessible, blah, 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 blah. It's just not a reality, because there'll be some other thing that'll come along that'll be bigger and greater and have more promise, whatever, and that'll be the next big thing. There's always going to be, I remember when I started getting into tech and I started actually building Microsoft computers. Yes, I had a hobby of building computers as a priest many years ago, decades ago now. And it was fun for a while. It was nice to learn new things. I had a friend of mine who was a bona fide Microsoft engineer who actually knew Bill Gates. I mean, they weren't buddies. I'd be lying to say that. But he worked for Bill Gates, maybe with him, I don't know. But when he retired, Melinda sent him a personal letter thanking him for all of his, technological contributions. So he was an interesting guy. He was a millionaire, but he didn't live like a millionaire. He just had a comfortable life, and he just loved tech. That's what he loved, and he loved, sharing. Every now and then, he took me under his wing, and he would kind of teach me some of these really interesting techie things. And I wish I had, learned more from him. I learned enough to be where I was dangerous. But the thing was that he was a tech guy, but I remember asking him. I said, "Hey, Arnie, when is all this tech stuff going to kind of come to, it's a universal level where everything's kind of all equal and you don't have to worry about the next thing?" And he said, in about 6 months, and this is back in 1997? Yeah, 1997, last century. And I was like, really? Oh, in 6 months? In other words, I won't have to worry about upgrading to all this extra new technology stuff. And he says, no, probably 6 months after you're dead. I went, God, I got it. I know. In other words, it's never going to stop evolving or changing. There's always going to be the next thing on the horizon. And that thing will make way, and it'll replace whatever the latest and the greatest is now. So it's just the way it is with technology. Just the way it is. And so again, but for me, I don't like when people try to superimpose that this is the way it's going to be, and you need to be a part of it. Now that's what we're seeing. And I'm hoping we're seeing kind of the end of this pandemic, this endemic, the COVID, because what I have really found to be very oppressive is this whole thing of everybody has to get the jab. And not everybody needs the jab. And the problem is that the science is very clear that if you have natural immunity, I think it was that Israel study that said 16 times stronger antibodies as resistance for the COVID and the variants. And I got to just say that they don't talk about that. They talk about unvaccinated as kind of like the new Jews. Sorry to say it that way, but they want to put them in concentration camps or re-education camps and force them to get the jab. If you want to get the jab and you feel that you need this, you've talked it over with your doctor, maybe your priest, your minister, pastor, whatever, okay, that's a personal choice. And if you get it, you get it. But don't force people like myself and others because somehow you feel that we're now dangerous because we're unvaccinated. No, I have natural immunity. I'm probably safer than most people. And also the painful, inconvenient truth that we're finding out more and more, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, is that people with the jab and all the boosters are still getting COVID. That's a fact. That's a painful fact, and a lot of people just don't want to hear it. So it leads me to my final little talk about criticism, leadership, know thyself, and that kind of thing. Earlier today, I got a comment on one of my other videos, and the person was clearly not a fan. Let's just put it that way. Now, they weren't vulgar, but they didn't pull any punches. They were pretty harsh. They basically said that I stink as a public speaker. They didn't quite say it in those words, but they pretty much alluded to the fact that they were not impressed with my public speaking skills. But as I read through the rest of it, I kind of started seeing where they were going. They were upset. Now, they had come to it wasn't just the video. At first, I thought they responded on my video channel, but what they were doing is I think they were trying to find a way to voice their objection to what they heard live in the church this last Sunday. Because I'm going, wait a minute, they're not talking about my video, even though it's my video channel. They're talking about actually attending Mass and hearing me preach live. I thought, okay. And I started thinking about it, and basically they were saying that I wasn't really prepared. I say too many ums and you knows. Maybe I do. I'm sure I do. I was going to say this. Even the great Rush Limbaugh, God rest him, was a professional public speaker, orator, speech writer, and somebody who gave great speeches. But I remember, as I would listen to him from time to time on the radio, there were times that I'd hear him go, I heard him even say those little awkward, connective pauses that we use to put our syntax together. And I always thought, I never thought that was a sign that he was a poor speaker, just that he was, sometimes when you're passionate about something and you're trying to make a point and you're looking for the right words, the right things to say and put them in the order that you want, sometimes you do go, according to, again, sometimes it's appropriate. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and yeah, there are people who write scripts. I don't. I'm more free form, free will, kind of free floating kind of. And there are people who write really good scripts and they do really professional, polished videos. And then there are other people like, perhaps even Jocko Willink. He's a little bit more measured in some of the things that he says. He takes more pauses in order to find the right words, which I think is a good technique to do. There are other people. There's a lot of my tech people that I watch. Now, some of them do write scripts, I'm sure, but 50% of it is kind of extemporaneous. They're going off of what I do sometimes. I do write out the text of my homilies sometimes. If I want to say something and I want to be really clear and I want to make sure that I'm going to be consistent, because I say sometimes 4 masses. I used to say 4 or 5 masses on a weekend. So sometimes it's hard to recall exactly word for word. So sometimes if it's a really important thing that I want to talk about and I want to make sure that people understand and they don't misunderstand, or even if they do later and they come back and they said, you said this, I'll say, no, I said this, and here's the text. So I kind of do 50-50. I'll do what I call the formal word for word homily that I give. I basically read it. And then the other one's more of a free form where I'll write down bullet points. And then I'll talk about those bullet points in a kind of a more conversational tone. And sometimes I have the ability, sometimes I have the time and the effort, I make the effort to really do more of a polished homily. Now, some people will criticize you for that even, because they'll go, well, if you can't remember it, how do you expect me to remember it? If you have to write it down and read it from a script, that's a valid criticism too. In fact, I was taught by some really good homilists that they said, you know what? It's okay to have a text every now and then, but you really should have it more where it's more conversational and you can look at people. And I see the value in both of these. I had one priest who said, no, I don't do that anymore because I said something and somebody thought I said something and I didn't say that. I told him, no, you misunderstood. And they got in trouble. And this priest didn't say anything wrong. He said, no, I said this. You heard that. But he couldn't prove it. He says, now I write everything down. If somebody challenges me and says, you said this, you can say, what did I say? No, I said this. And you hold up the text and say, this is what I said. Word for word. So, yeah, you can do that too. So, but the thing was, the person I had said, and I knew it, and I think I even prefaced this. I gave a little disclaimer. I said, now I'm going to say something that might set some of you on edge. I'm going to talk about COVID. And in my personal opinion, I think that we've heard too much fear-mongering when it comes to COVID. Too much fear-mongering. Now, I'm not denying that COVID exists. A lot of people say, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. You don't believe in COVID. I go, no. I had it. In fact, I mentioned that. I said I had it, and the person thought the person misunderstood that. They said, how dare you even be talking when you were just getting over COVID? You shouldn't have even been preaching, kind of thing. I said, no, I had it 4 months ago. Again, they clearly weren't listening. So after this critique, I started going, well, what? Because they had their knives out. There's no doubt about it. Now, like I said, they weren't vulgar, but they certainly weren't charitable. And they basically let me know that they did not care for my preaching style. And in fact, they felt that I wasn't a good public speaker at all. And said, you need to go take some classes. Well, yeah, we can always get better. I agree. We can always get better. But then they got to the bottom line, I think their real gripe, and they were very upset that I had talked about COVID in kind of a casual, non-threatening way. And I think that when you talk, because I talked about, I said, I had some dividends to COVID. And I was talking about that sometimes we don't see God doing good things in our lives because we're not like trying to grow spiritually. If we're trying to grow spiritually, then we're going to see good things that God is trying to do in our lives. And my whole point was, a lot of times people, because they aren't growing in the Christian virtues, they're not, trying to improve their prayer life. When sometimes bad things happen to us, we may not see the hand of God in that because we're not able to. But if we're growing in Christian virtues, we're growing in our prayer life, we're growing in holiness, then when those bad things happen, and they do happen to all of us, then we're going to have a better perspective on what's really going on and to see the hand of God in all that. And so instead of seeing something as a complete negative, you're going to see it as maybe there were some positive dividends to it. And that's all I was trying to say. Grow in the virtues, because when we do that, we're going to be able to see the hand of God, in our lives. Now, maybe I didn't say it that succinctly. I thought I kind of did. I had some bullet points and I tried to make, but they did not like the fact that I think that what they really were upset about was that I didn't talk about COVID as this horrible, evil, fearful thing that we all need to be afraid of. I even had another letter this week by somebody who was incensed that we didn't, apparently we weren't following the mask mandate, And I don't know about other places, but there are people that wear masks and some people that do and some people that don't. And it's not my authority to go and tell somebody and hey, put that mask on, buddy. That's not my responsibility. That's not my authority. I even called the Placer County Sheriff and they said, "Sir, you don't have that authority to do that. You can maybe suggest people say, hey, would you please put your mask on?" You could do that. But there were a lot of people that would probably just look at me and say, "No, I'm not going to do it." And I'm not going to get in their face. Now, one guy said I needed to get in people's face, like this one priest supposedly down in the Bay Area. He won't start the mass until everybody's wearing a mask. And if they're not wearing masks, he'll get up in their face and he'll point at them and tell them, "You put that mask on, buddy." I wonder if he ever got punched out by doing that. That's none of his business. At least that's according to what the sheriff deputy told me. "Sir, you do not have the authority to mandate or tell somebody what they must do. You don't have that authority. It's a mandate, it's not a law." So again, because I talked about COVID in a non-threatening way, kind of maybe they felt I was minimizing it. That's probably what they thought. Because if you talk about certain things, you have to have that gravity and that fear factor that, oh gosh, this is scary. We got to take it seriously. And I'm not saying you don't, but at the same time, I don't know if it's healthy to be afraid of things like that. And so I think this is where that person was really going. I even asked a dear friend to kind of look it over and say, what's your take on this? And I think they kind of saw the same thing. Do I use a lot of you-knows and ums when I talk sometimes? Yeah, I do, But it's not the end of the world. I just was watching a video before I came down here about an hour ago. This young guy, and he's giving I don't know if he was a pastor or a minister or somebody giving a TED talk, but he was up there and he was talking and showing videos and he kept going, not a lot, but at the same time, I didn't find it. I guess if you're going to count those things, it's sort of like I have this heater in the house, in my room, and if I focus on the noise that it makes in the middle of the night, it'll keep me awake. But if I don't focus on it, if I'm listening to, say, an audiobook or some music or whatever, I don't hear it, or I'm not even aware of it, and I just go to sleep. But I think that when somebody is nitpicking and trying to be critical, then yes, they're gonna pick up on every little discrepancy that you're manifesting. Whether it's your speech patterns or your political beliefs or whatever it is, they'll probably find fault with that. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and the reason why I opened with a kind of a homage to Jocko, was that he's been talking to a lot of these really awesome people. See my vegan cup here? You know what? I wonder if I'm still recording. Yep, it's still recording. Okay, good. Sorry about that. Maybe I'll cut that out. Maybe I won't. But he was talking to this one guy. Well, he was talking to two guys. And again, they're 4.5 hour podcasts. So a lot of people aren't going to watch it because they just don't have the time. And frankly, I don't have a lot of time. But in the evening, sometimes if I could just say, you know what, instead of watching something, I'm just going to listen to something, and I can do it that way, and it works. It's not bad. But he had two guys on the last couple nights that I've watched. One guy was a guy named Jonathan or Johnny Kim. He's a former Navy SEAL. And no, actually, he's a current Navy SEAL. He's on his way to NASA to be an astronaut. And I thought, he's a Korean young man, and I thought, you know what? That guy sure sounds and looks familiar. And I remember this young guy, this goes back into 1997, 1998, when I was in Bosnia. And I had this young guy who was just absolutely crestfallen. He had just failed buds for the first time, and he just was devastated. He was like, man, and then I guess the Navy sent him over to Bosnia to do, I think he was like a Seabee or something, young Seabee. Anyway, long story short, I thought it was the same guy. I thought, gosh, 20 years ago, I talked to that young man. Well, even though he looked like the guy and had the same last name, it wasn't the same guy. But I still watched the video. It was 4 hours. And this guy was an interesting story, very similar to kind of my story. I won't go into all of it, but he was talking about overcoming your fears. Overcoming your fears. And he was kind of a scrawny, puny little kid growing up and picked on by most everybody. And then one day he heard about Navy SEALs, and somehow he got this crazy idea that he was going to become a Navy SEAL, and he did. And then he became a SEAL, not only an operator, but an officer, and then he went on to become a medical doctor, and then he's going off at now his next leg of his journey as he's, I guess, finishing up his career as a NASA doc. So awesome stuff. But the other guy I saw last night called Jason Redman, maybe some of you heard of Jason Redman. This guy's story was absolutely incredible. And I did get his book. And talk about a page turner. I mean, wow. But this guy is just an absolute walking miracle. And so he was on Jocko podcast, I guess I watched it last night. This might have been a year ago or 6 months ago. Long story short, they were talking about his early years as a SEAL and then later as a SEAL officer. He also became an officer. And what happened was, because, there are lots of things that motivate us. And even though the desire to be a Navy SEAL was a good thing, part of it was he was trying to make up for the fact that he was a short little guy. He was a little short guy. And a lot of people that are short seem to be super overachievers. And some of them have what they call a Napoleonic complex, okay? And anyway, he, in his early years, he was pretty cocky. He was pretty, had a lot of ego, big ego. And he couldn't take criticism, couldn't take it, not one iota could he take it. And so he was talking about how not being able to learn from good constructive criticism got him in a lot of trouble. And I have to say that there's a lot of truth to that. And again, yes, as an officer, as somebody who's in the public eye like myself, you do have to be aware and painfully aware that, you have shortcomings, you have limitations. And those people that know me know that I'll tell them, I say, no, I really don't like to preach. I don't like giving homilies. I mean, I do it, and I try to do the best I can. I try to bring a yeoman's service to it. I try to do the very best that I can. Sometimes I do pretty good, and sometimes I'm pretty, it's like, and the only good thing, the only saving grace that I would say that I have is I don't, of course, this video probably would be counterproductive, what I'm trying to say. I don't preach more than maybe 5 or 7 minutes anytime. There are some people that have said, wish you would have talked more about that issue, or wish you would have said more, or I could have listened to you all day, or whatever. No, there's a few people out there. I know they're few and far between, but there are a few people that do like my homilies. In fact, it's kind of interesting because earlier in the week, I got an email from somebody that says, we miss your homilies. You tell me where your YouTube page is so we can go and watch your homilies because we can't come to church anymore. We moved away. And I said, okay. So, so it's not like, I just really stink and I'm the worst homilist in the whole world. I mean, that would not be true either, Now, again, am I brilliant every time I get up to preach? No. Do I prepare? Yes. Now, sometimes, according to this person, it looked like I wasn't prepared and I was rambling. Well, that's a different style and, again, a different approach. And for some people, they like that approach. They like more of that conversational give and take, personal stories, because they thought that, well, your personal stories are meaningless, basically. You're wasting time, you're rambling, And I thought, well, okay. And then at the very end of that critique, I said, well, what is really going on here? Am I really that bad, or is there something else going on? So can I improve? Absolutely. Can I improve? Can I try to avoid the ums and the you knows and the all that stuff? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the thing is, you can always learn. You can always get better. There's always room for improvement, always. But the thing that I would say is that you have to look at where people are coming from, and sometimes they have an agenda. They have a clear, bone to pick. They got a, what's the word I was going to say? Yeah, they got a bone to pick with you. They don't like what you say or how you say something, or what are you trying to say here? And I think that the bottom line was, in all honesty, that they felt that I was minimizing the severity and the seriousness of the COVID. There's a wonderful YouTuber. He's a Catholic YouTuber. And I think he got COVID right after I did. So it was probably maybe like a week or two after I got COVID. This gentleman, his name is Michael Matt. His dad started the Remnant newspaper. It's a wonderful Catholic weekly. And then he started Remnant TV and radio. And he's talking about an awesome public speaker. Michael Matt is that and more. And he does a lot of videos, kind of like the way I do, sitting here and just kind of pontificating or, pipe-tificating. I don't think he smokes a pipe. Maybe he does. No, they had a picture of him and his dad, and I think his dad was a pipe smoker. Yeah. Maybe Michael's a pipe smoker. I don't know. Maybe he is. Could be. So, but here's the thing. About 4 months ago, he got COVID. And what I loved, and I have a dear friend, and she knows exactly what I'm going to say, is even though he's a great speaker, public speaker, and maybe you'd even say an orator. The guy is, he's phenomenal, right? He gave a little video on his porch, drinking a cup of coffee, late October, I think it was, or middle October, in Minnesota. And he had his little hunting cap on, little checkered hat and little jacket on, and he was drinking his coffee. I think it was coffee. And what he said was, folks, this is another face of COVID. In other words, he was like, guys, I got COVID and I'm going to be okay. You don't have to be afraid of this thing. And I told my friend, I said, as much as I love all the other videos that he does, and he does a great job, he's very professional about it all, that was the one that I really related to, and I enjoyed probably more than, I like them all, but this one to me was personal, because he was being a real guy, saying, hey guys, I got COVID, and I'm here on my porch in the middle of Minnesota, in the middle of October, and I'm doing fine. He said the only problem was that they were running out of John Wayne movies. And he wasn't fearful, like, well, I hope I don't have to go to the emergency room and get ventilated, and I'm so afraid of that. Oh no. I have had so many people who have been more afraid. The fear has been so palpable in them that I feel sorry for them. I'm going, why are you so afraid? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, brothers and sisters. Pope John Paul II, if you're wondering. Don't be afraid. Doesn't mean there's nothing to be afraid of, but don't let that fear paralyze you. Don't let that fear dictate you. Don't let that fear run your life. I don't know how many people I know that they've been defined by the COVID. They're absolutely petrified. They won't go anywhere. They don't see anybody. They're afraid to do this and do that. And it's like, wow, you really are very fearful. You are living in fear and not in faith. So anyway, but getting back to my original thesis statement about criticism and reading that opening by General Shoup is like, it's easy to criticize people. It really is. Now, that being said, it's also good if you're a good leader and a good a person that is self-aware. You kind of realize, well, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I need to, kind of look at this and say, okay, where could I improve? Where could I get better? We can always, like I said, there's always room for improvement. But at the same time, when people are critical, now I'd say I have 3 people in my life that are true, honest, objective critics, and they're good at it. They're not critical, but they're discerning, and they're very, very helpful. I have one friend, his name is Steve, and if I have created something like a video or something technical, and I want to, deep down inside I go, there's something not quite right with this, and I can't see it. And I'll give it to him, and he'll say, oh, you need to do this. You need to slow down the videos, or you need to speed up the videos, or whatever, like I do a slideshow sometimes. And bang. And I don't take it like, oh, how dare you criticize me? It's like, oh, I see it. Oh, you're right. And it's not, he's attacking me personally. He's just trying to say, hey, objectively, you could do it better this way, or consider this, or consider that. And boom. And 9 times out of 10, if I give it to him, I know that it's going to become a better production, or better, whatever it is, video or special effect or whatever it is I'm trying to create. But again, I know it's not critical. I have my other 2 friends, Dawn and Katie, and they're the same way. They'll be very objective. They'll say, well, maybe, or maybe they'll ask questions. Well, what do you think is going on with this person? Do you know who this person is? Oh, no, I don't know who they are at all. So, but again, they're objective, and they're not they're critiquing. They're not being critical of me personally, but they are critiquing something objective. And if you're able to learn from that, you're only going to get better. And so that's those kinds of criticisms are very helpful. They're probably very necessary. So again, I think, now nobody likes to be criticized, or nobody has to be somebody to critically evaluate something, because you put your ego out there. But the thing that I've kind of learned from the Jocko podcast and the last couple of ones that I've watched, and I'll just go ahead and close with this, is that it is necessary for not just people in leadership or in the military or in the church, but for all of us to be able to receive constructive, and they used to call it this, and a lot of times it was constructive criticism, because it was meant to make corrections to make something better. And as long as it's given in that kind of a vein, then it's fine. It's actually really, really positive. Actually, it's not, we think of criticism as putting somebody down. No, what you're trying to do is you're trying to shore them up, build up, make it better. Not tear well, a lot of times there are some criticisms that are meant to just tear somebody down as a person and make you feel bad. And I think that's what this was, for the most part. But constructive criticism is really just the opposite. It's about building something up, making it better. So I welcome that kind of criticism, because I want to be better. I don't want to be somebody out there that's not really effective, or somebody who's deceiving themselves. So again, just listening to that Jocko podcast and this guy named Jason Redman, he has a book called The Trident, and it's a powerful book. It's a good book. It's a page turner for the most part. And I'll tell you this, I'll leave you with this, because it's kind of interesting, and it ties in with another theme, but I won't go into it now. But there's a couple of sections in that book where he's talking about the dying experience. And certainly there have been people that have talked about the philosophy of dying from a spiritual and religious, theological standpoint. Sorry about that, I did an there. There are people that have maybe depicted poetically death. I think there's a Tarkovsky film where there's a Knight Templar playing chess with death. Poetic kind of depictions of the mystery of death and dying. And certainly there's that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, The Stages of Death and Dying. But this guy, now I'm sure there's other people that have attempted to write the actual physical experience of being so critically wounded and bleeding out that you know that death is imminent. But the way this guy did it, now I don't know if he wrote it himself or if he had a ghostwriter, but it's powerful. I actually felt that I was lying there bleeding out in Iraq, that I just gotten ambushed. I could feel it, all the sensations. It was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm dying. So very, very powerful. So Jason Redman, but he was talking about basically, and I'll bring it to a close, about the necessity of receiving constructive criticism and learning from that and growing from that only to become a better person. So I'm hoping that I'm that kind of a person, or at least I'm on that journey, I'm on that path to saying, okay, I appreciate that insight. I'll take it under advisement and see what I can learn from it. Thank you very much. Because, and again, it ties in with a lot of the spiritual things that I've been listening to and reading in addition. And it's all about humility. Honest humility is not about putting yourself down. It's about becoming a better version of yourself. And that's what I think is so powerful about, just being able to receive critical or constructive criticism and learn from it and grow from it. Well, that being said, this is old Smoko Padre, Smoko Podcast. That's a new, maybe that'll be my new channel, I don't know. Saying, light up your world, and light up your bike. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.